Cool. So how was everybody's weekend? Sarah, how was your weekend? Oh, Sarah's on mute and frozen. Cool. We're going to keep rolling with this. That's not awkward at all. Awesome. So I've got a list of questions here that we can go through that I'm really excited about. Some of these are pretty interesting. Others are really fun. So I think Drew's going to be, Drew's here. So we are good to go. So we can kick this off with something that we've kind of been talking about a little bit in both Zoom calls is this idea of finding balance. And I think it's really important because, at the end of the day, if you are too tired to really like function or do much, you're probably pushing a little bit too hard. So one of the questions that we want to go over today is, how do you know when you're pushing too hard during a workout? And I think this would be a really good one for Drew to start off with. I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey guys, sorry about being a few minutes late. This question is so difficult for me to answer because like a lot of questions that we talk about, a lot of it's individual to the person that's asking it. I know that there are some, I guess, there's data you can look at. I know that we don't run by heart rate, we run on feel. So sometimes like taking out the heart rate deal, which can oftentimes not be accurate when it comes to like pushing too hard, so to speak. But fatigue levels, I know that we do a lot with perceived effort. And so oftentimes when you start asking yourself, maybe mid-run or maybe between intervals or whatever it is, am I pushing too hard during this workout? Obviously, you never want to run a workout to like full exhaustion. You don't want to get done with a workout and fall down. You don't want to run so hard that you end up, hurting yourself. I mean, there's so many things you obviously don't want to do. And how do you know what's too hard? How do you know where the threshold is between like awesome workout and hurt yourself? It's tough. Athletes that kind of ask me the same question, what we do is we start early in the training process. We build on harder workouts or faster workouts. And the idea is that you don't go from 0 to 100 overnight, right? Like just like the rest of our training, it takes time and patience and you build on it. And that threshold where your maximum effort is found, it takes time to develop and takes time to feel comfortable with. Metrics though, it's something that I know Kristen and Sarah will talk about, can be really difficult because we do so much based on feel. Tough question. Obviously, like you don't want to fail, you don't want to run to exhaustion, you don't want to hurt yourself. I don't know, Kristen, what do you think?
I do think this is a difficult question. It's kind of a rough one to start off with. But I think that if you're running off of feel and effort all the time, over time, you will start to adapt and I feel like as runners, we're all just so in tune with our bodies and we know when something's off. And so if you are having like a really off day or you're more fatigued than usual, that's causing you like to stop and wonder like, should I do this workout today? Is it possible to push it to tomorrow? Like talk to your coach about that, because running when you're that exhausted you're not going to get a lot of benefit from that. But I think one definite way to know when you're pushing too hard, when you're actually doing the workout, is when your mood takes a very steep downward turn or you start to spiral. Because I think that a lot of times this is also mental toughness training and mental training. And so if that's one thing that feels off, or you're just in a terrible mood after your warm up or, 3 reps in, it's probably a sign that you're pushing too hard. Loss of appetite is another one that is a pretty big red flag. Like you should constantly be fueling your body. So if you go, a couple of days and you're just not really fueling very well or feeling like you're hungry, I think that that's definitely a red flag, but also being chronically fatigued, and knowing the difference between feeling tired and feeling chronically fatigued. Those are two really important distinctions to make. And Caitlin in the chat is asking about how we should feel afterwards. What if we're feeling drained later or for the remainder of the day? And that honestly kind of ties into another question that we have, and this definitely pairs with this. And is it normal to feel completely useless, brain dead, and wiped out for the rest of the day following a long run? My gut answer to this is no, absolutely not. You shouldn't be able to go do another long run by any means, but you should have fueled well enough the day before the long run, during your long run. Fueling after your long run is critical for recovery, for adaptation gains, for everything. Like your body has to come back into this balance, and you need fuel to do that. So that's why we talk a lot about trying to get in between 250 and 400 calories per hour on long mountain runs. It's a little bit different for shorter distances, as Drew can definitely talk to. But I do not think it's normal to feel like you can't get off the couch, unless
you should never feel worthless. My wife and I have a deal where if I'm out on a long run and I get back and I can't help her with the kids and I can't help cook lunch and I can't do that, it was not worth it. I ran too hard, too long. You have to be able to be helpful to yourself and your partner or whoever is in your life. Never after a long run should you be completely worthless the rest of the day. Hydration, nutrition, like Kristen's talking about. I mean, it's normal for you to feel tired, for you to feel maybe like a deep, achy feeling in your legs, but never should it put you in bed and then you not be able to get out of bed all day. That's too much. And granted, we've all been there, we've all experienced these things, and that's how you kind of figure out where that threshold is and figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah, I do think I'm a big fan of like early morning Sunday long runs or Saturday long runs, whatever. And taking a nap in the middle of the day, that's wonderful. But if I can't get out of bed or off the couch, if I can't get up to like make a snack or drink a protein shake, then all the bells and whistles start to go off and it becomes a concern. So I definitely think this goes back to fueling. So if anyone's feeling like this during a workout or a run, and especially after, like let's definitely look at how you're fueling the day, the 2 days, the 3 days building up to the long run, and how you're refueling and rehydrating yourself after that big effort. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
You guys hit on a ton of great points, and not much to add, but just thinking about, in the workouts, like especially like those Wednesday workouts where maybe we have some intervals, or, you're picking up the pace for a little bit and then coming back down into that easy pace. If you can't come back down into an easy pace and you have to stop and walk, then you've taken that interval too fast. So you really want to be able to go from easy to the speed back into easy. And if you can't do that, then that would be an indication that you're going too hard. Similarly, like if you're, doing an easy run, like Tuesday, Thursday run, and there are hills, you should feel totally free to walk the hills. And if you get to the top, if you decide you want to run the hill and then you get to the top of the hill and you're so tired that you have to stop and walk now, it would have been better for you to be power hiking up that hill than like walking that flat at the top of the hill. So just thinking about that piece, like, are you sort of being forced to take it way down? That would be an indication that you're not like in that in between speed.
Sorry,
You're on mute. There you go.
I feel like some of these questions are very like they're related, which is cool because we can have a longer conversation about this. So if you're feeling very fatigued, very tired, we could ask you to do a blood panel to see what your iron and ferritin levels are like. We could, you could go in and talk to your doctor about the amount of fatigue that you're feeling, or, you know, maybe there's something else wrong that us as coaches aren't able to explain or prescribe or diagnose, right? So one question that came up was, do you lie to your doctors or physios, chiropractors, physical therapists, whatever? Do you lie about how much you run just to get them to actually try to figure out the problem instead of telling you to stop running? No, no is my answer. Absolutely not. You should be honest always. Not just in this circumstance, but in every circumstance, especially in this circumstance, because I think that you can start by telling your doctor that you're an endurance athlete. So that will give them more information about you. And there's a significant difference between someone who sits on the couch all day and eats Cheetos versus, you know, and feels tired, versus someone who runs 30 to 50 miles a week and is active and is feeling tired. There's just different mechanics and like fluid levels that happen simply due to this one piece of information that you are an endurance runner, or endurance athlete. So I would highly suggest not lying to your doctor, because this could cause multiple issues and complications. You know, you're probably still not going to get the answer you're looking for, or not even get close to the right answer that you're looking for, because it's going to just divert you down the wrong path. So I think that you should always be very straightforward with your doctor. Like no shame, no embarrassment. Tell them exactly how you feel. That's their job. They went through years and years and years of medical school to be able to give you advice for these circumstances.
With most running related issues, you shouldn't have to stop running. Like there are ways to do physical therapy or treatment while maintaining some level of running. Granted, you might have to back off in terms of volume, intensity, whatever it is. But most things, whether it's IT band syndrome or a like tight hamstring or patella tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, whatever your issue is, you should be able to run through most of that while seeking treatment. So I get kind of weirded out when I'll send someone to a PT or they go see their doctor and they come back and say, yeah, they told me not to run for 4 weeks. It's like, whoa, red flag. Like that's shouldn't happen unless, you know, you have like a broken bone or like there's a tear, a significant tear or something pretty detrimental. Finding a healthcare provider as it pertains to like, say like physiologists, like we were talking about in the deal, can be difficult. Highly recommend reaching out to maybe other runners in your community or running stores, or maybe your primary care physician might have a recommendation on someone that they know that is a runner. Oftentimes, if you have a healthcare professional who also runs, they can tend to cater to runners maybe a little bit more. I don't want to say more better, but you know what I mean? They get it. And so, yes, that's kind of my tidbit.
I mean, I will also say that you can always ask for a second opinion. That is within your right. And like the ability to advocate for yourself as a human, as an athlete is really important. It's like a very, very important thing to do. And so I think that if you go into a doctor and they sort of just dismiss you as saying, if you're maybe in Colorado or somewhere higher in altitude and you're feeling incredibly fatigued and you know something's wrong, but you can't figure it out on your own, and you go into the doctor and hypothetically they say, oh, it's just the altitude, you know, you'll adjust, you'll adapt. If that's not the case, you need to find a different doctor. You need to start asking more questions. You need to start doing more research. You need to start looking around and making sure that you're getting the best, the best care that you can, because you're paying for it. And it's your body, and it's like, you know, when something's wrong. So just don't feel bad for asking someone to do a better job at their job.
Definitely. Like Kristen said, want to reiterate, be honest with your doctor, be open and honest. Everything you feel, everything you are doing, they need to know that so that they can help you faster. Like, please don't withhold information that might make their job harder, or like Kristen mentioned, might get the wrong diagnosis, the wrong treatment. And then you wasted everyone's time, including your own, because you're withholding that important information.
Yeah, I'll just, obviously reiterate that you should always be honest with your healthcare provider. That doesn't mean that you have to take their advice. So, if you do meet with a healthcare provider and you feel dismissed, or you feel that they, you disagree with what they said, you can do some more research. Like Kristen said, get a second opinion. But just because they said some, be honest with them, and you might not like the conclusion they come to, or you might respectfully disagree, but you still want to be honest with them. And you can also, if you feel like the fact that you're an athlete is interfering with their diagnosis or the way that they're handling your case, you can ask them those sorts of questions. Like, if I wasn't an athlete, would you have a different opinion about these test results? If I wasn't a runner, or if you didn't know that about me, would you have a different way that you would want to explore this? Can we talk about that? So definitely ask your doctor how you're being an athlete is influencing their recommendations, because that's just more information for you.
Yep, I love that. I think that I agree with everyone's answers. Yes. So, I mean, again, just to reiterate, if anyone's experiencing this, I think it's worth asking more questions. So that's great. And the follow-up questions is so critical, because I think it's hard. It depends on the area that you live. You might live in the Midwest, where there aren't a lot of mountain ultra athletes. You might be coming off of a track background and have no idea why your body's reacting the way that it is to mountain running, when you've been used to running 6-minute miles around a cylinder for 4 years, whatever. So just definitely follow up, ask questions. And like Sarah said, you can respectfully disagree. That is an okay thing to do. So one other question that is interesting is regarding race strategy. And we kind of talked about this in a chat not too long ago, within the last month for sure, about how to go about your fueling plan, your race plan, strategy, things like that. So the question is, what are your favorite racing strategies, and how or when do you utilize different race strategies? So I'm going to have Sarah start this one off, because I really like her answer.
Oh, do I have an answer?
I think, yeah, it was in the Google Doc at one point.
I know. Gosh, I don't even know. I think my primary race strategy is to start slow. And I mean, that's like definitely, so for those who don't know, I mean, I guess really I'm an ultra, I race ultra distances. And most recently, like the 100-mile distance. So my strategies are more geared towards that, which is going to be really different than somebody racing a half marathon. But oh, yeah. I mean, really, so, I think I talk about just process. I really try to focus on process-oriented goals more than having like an overall outcome that I'm focused on for the race. So my strategies are really like, I really try to break the race down like into chunks as much as possible. Like I really focus aid station to aid station. That's like my primary way of breaking things down. So prior to going to a race, I've read through the race description. I've read each of the, paragraphs about what's happening before and after each aid station. So I'm trying to envision like what fueling I'm going to need that time of day, what the weather is going to be like, what my energy level is going to be like. So I know like what I need to pick up at the aid station. So for example, this last race I did, the beginning wasn't very technical. And then around 30 miles, it got super technical. So I picked up my trekking poles at 30 miles. And then, so really like, that's what it looks like for me. It's studying the course very intensely, breaking it down aid station to aid station, and then planning how I anticipate to like do that section of the course.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely, I love the idea of going from aid station to aid station, because even if you need that little mental boost, just getting from, one point to the next point before you think about the next point or the next point and the next point is really, really crucial, especially for some of these longer races. But to reiterate what Sarah said, I am also a big fan of starting slow, finishing fast. I had a coach for the longest time who always used to tell us those who lead lose. And 99% of the time he was absolutely correct. So I think that with breaking down your race strategy and starting slower, finishing faster, and just kind of like almost treating it as like a progression run, but also being very strategic about your nutrition and having a nutrition plan A and a nutrition plan B and maybe even a nutrition plan C, because you just don't know what's going to happen on race day. So I think just being as prepared as you can is the best strategy.
There's one ultra athlete, I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. She wrote Running Your First Ultra, Chrissy something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she writes in there about spreading the peanut butter, which I really love. And she talks about how, if you get peanut butter on your knife and you imagine like spreading it across your bread, right? And you want to make sure that like all the peanut butter gets on the bread and it's evenly spread out, and you don't end up with a whole bunch left on your knife when you're done. And there's not like a huge big glob right in the middle. And so she talks about that as thinking about your race. Like you're starting out with all that energy, all that peanut butter on your knife, and you want to spread it out across the course of, the whole day and not just like put it all in one spot.
Yes, that is brilliant. Plus, I just really love peanut butter too. So it's like my favorite analogy ever. Drew, do you have any advice for some of the shorter, faster stuff? What are your go-to race strategies?
I think that when we addressed this before, I mentioned something along the lines of your race strategy is obviously completely dependent on you and your abilities. So if you're an awesome climber, you love living in the mountains, and you're great at maintaining a above average pace while incline or running uphill, pretty much the opposite of me is what I'm trying to say. Then obviously you'll want to make moves in your races that help you. If you're like me and you've got more natural leg speed, tend to like the girls, be as conservative as possible at the beginning while setting myself up for an awesome finish and hope to beat people that way. But yeah, I like when my athletes talk to me about their upcoming races, and not that I don't think that coaches should reach out to you, all right, here's your race that's coming up. You've got a half marathon and this is what we're going to do. And I need you to do this. You need to execute. Never should have that conversation. But if you come to your coach, hey, this is my goal and we support you with that goal. That's what we've been training for this whole time. Are there any, strategies or anything that I can do in your opinion that you think might set me up for success to achieve this goal during the race? I love when people come to me with that, because I'm like, well, if you look at these workouts over the last few months, you really knocked them out of the park. And I really think that during your race miles, 25 through 30, before we get to finishing this 50K, I really want to make some moves there based on the course elevation profile, blah, blah, blah. But really trying to stick to what you do best, not try to mimic anyone else's race strategy. What are you good at? And utilize that to benefit you on race day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the strategy is also really honing in your mental game and knowing what to expect. Like Sarah said, it's understanding the course, studying that thing, whether it's a marathon course on the road or a 50-miler on trails, knowing the ins and outs of it, like the back of your hand. It will be super beneficial for those mental dips that you'll take. And just being confident in your ability, being confident in the training, and try to finish a race strong. When you're the last 10 to 20% of the race, you can get a mental boost knowing that what is left in the race, what's to come, you are prepared. And being able to put yourself in a situation where you can shoot that shot, you can really go for it if you're in a position to do that. It's just, we as coaches can't come up with this strategy for you, but we can definitely help you form an idea of what to go for. So, yeah. And another question that we have could be applied to running, or of course it's applied to running. It could be applied to racing. It was a question about maintaining concentration for technical downhills, or just being on really mentally demanding downhill trails. Like, how do you stay focused? How do you not fall? How, what kind of steps do you take, type of things? If anyone wants to kick that off.
I admittedly don't run a ton of trail. I do like my 150K a year just to show myself I can. And then I go back and I'm running pretty much like half marathons is like my favorite distance of all time. But when I am training for my 50Ks, a lot of the trails here in Arkansas are very technical, I guess you could say. The ground just grows big, sharp rocks everywhere and roots everywhere. It's just, doesn't matter where you go. I see pictures of people running in like beautiful places in Colorado where the trails look so awesome. And then I get here and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it's not even fair. But running downhill, it takes, well, when it's technical, mind you, takes a lot of concentration. There have been instances in the past where I look up to see someone coming and say hi, and I'm not paying attention down to like what's my feet are doing really, and I've bit the dust. Trying to really stay present. And it doesn't mean that you can't socialize and visit with maybe running partners or whatever, your dog or whatever else you've got out there. But specifically when you're downhill, those are when some of the nastiest spills can take place, when you can really hurt yourself. So really concentrate, know where you're putting your feet, slow down, take it easy. Don't like bust ass downhill and just make it up on the flat or the uphill. But definitely those downhills, I can't stand when people just like fly by me downhill. It's like that person's got a death wish. I really think they're going to hit a tree or something and explode, but really take it easy.
Yeah, I definitely understand that feeling. I feel like that's like when it's winter and they're in the middle of a blizzard and there's that one guy in the car on the highway who's just going, Mach 50, and 10 miles later, that car's in the ditch or pulled over by a police officer or something. And you're like, yes, justice. But I think with technical downhill trails, it's worth practicing. I think that if you're worried about it, if you want to work on it, you can be very intentional about the way you run your downhills in long runs or workouts. For what it's worth, I think taking short little steps with like choppier strides will be more helpful, especially if it's like very rocky, rooty terrain. And watch where you're going. You don't want to be just like looking around and falling into a cactus or something. Not that that's ever happened to anyone I know.
Yeah, right.
It absolutely happened to me last year at Black Canyon. But also I think it's, for me, I always notice that I either need to pay more attention or be more focused or present when I start dragging my feet a little bit. And I have to remind myself to pick my feet up when I'm getting tired. So if you notice yourself kind of like tripping, stumbling, going uphill or downhill, make a solid effort to like lock in your form, pay attention to that for a while, get your feet up so they're not clipping rocks or roots, because it's a really good way to Superman and potentially not get up.
I love that you say like practice this type of thing. Obviously, whatever your race day terrain is something that you should have practiced multiple times leading up to your event. But practicing where you're putting your foot, like it's an art, it's a skill, placing your foot with purpose is huge, and it takes a lot of focus. And it takes a lot of practice. Very, very important recommendation on Kristen's part. Something that helps me that's kind of stupid, to be honest with you, is the group that I run with. We have this bet where if anybody in a group run falls down, they have to buy everyone else a beer. And so since I've been running like solo a lot, I still think about that. No one's going to see me if I fall, but I'm so worried that I'm going to have to buy a round for the guys that it's just going to like ruin me. So whatever it takes for you to not fall, just do that.
Do that. Yeah. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to say the opposite of that, which is like, have some acceptance around the fact that you might fall. And that can actually process a little bit. I felt, well, so I am not a great downhill runner. I will own that, but I have gotten a lot better. I often tell the people I'm running with, like, for as bad as I am a lot better than I used to be. And it's true. And it's just from practice, like just doing it. It's hard for me. It's terrible for my ego because it's like everybody is waiting for me at the bottom of the hill while I like make my way down. But I'm getting better and I know I am. And like, that's the only thing that I can ask for. So like, I would just say that, like, you know, you just have to keep out and go doing the things that are difficult. That's the only way that you can get better at them. Just like Kristen was saying, you have to practice it.
I really think that there's something to be said about like, if something is hard for you, chances are it's also very good for you. So practicing and accepting the fact that you might fall and kind of getting over that initial fear is that's a really good way to look at it. I think, Sarah, that's so smart. Sorry, I also cut you off if you want to continue.
No, I kind of a big contusion on my shin right now. And so I don't feel very smart, but you know, like I had that happen on a run a few weeks ago and it really sucked. It really hurt. And I was like alone by myself in the woods. And I fell right on a rock and like huge bruise and blood, like right on the trail. And it sucked. And then I like cried for a few minutes and sat there with it. And I knew like I had to get up and move forward. Like I either had to go back to the trailhead, which was 2 miles behind me, or go forward and, you know, at least try. I just knew I had to try. And I got up and once I got moving, you know, it was okay. But like, it sucked, you know, like it was hard and falling is hard and it's not great, but like, it also happens all the time. And sometimes people fall and like, you finish your run and it'll be okay. So I think that it can, like, getting that initial thing out of the way can actually make it a little bit easier. Not that I'm encouraging everybody to go fall, but like,
it happens, you know. I mean, one of my favorite runners and a friend of mine, Keely Henninger, falls all the time. She talks about it openly. It's like, if she doesn't fall during a run or a race, it's like, you know, she's like, what? Like, this is weird. This never happens. But she, like, being able to sort of craft this as like an art of the fall, right? Like maybe expect it to happen. And if it doesn't, like, heck yeah, you know, celebrate, and then celebrate the fact that you don't have to buy your friends beer, because that would I feel like once I start thinking like, you know, oh, I'm 10 miles into this trail run and I haven't fallen yet. Weird. That's when I go face first, you know? So I think if I were able to reframe that and say like, hey, this is really great. Like, I don't want it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy by any means, but, you know, just pick up your feet, I guess. Don't be afraid of what could happen.
A lot of people end up tripping, obviously, when they get fatigued and they're not picking their feet up as much as they were maybe at the beginning of the run. And so really easy exercises that you can do that help you pick your feet up more and for longer are just some simple like knee raises, no weights necessary, but doing like, just tell people 3 sets of 15 each side. Just a simple, you're standing and you just lift a knee as high as you can bring it and then put it down and bring it up and put it down. And that strengthens your hip flexors. When your hip flexors are stronger, your knees come up higher, making your foot come up higher. And so really trying to strengthen certain parts of your body can also assist with decreasing your chance of tripping and falling. But everyone's right. You're going to trip, you're going to fall. It happens. But the idea is we want to mitigate it as much as possible.
Absolutely. So I hope everyone's feeling better about that. I know that we talk a lot about like mountain legs or speed legs, and those are also really great ways to build that strength in your hip flexors. And just, so if you are doing hill repeats, make sure that your form is like almost plyometric. Try to get your knees high, your shoulders back. We prescribe the hill repeats or hill strides for a reason. And it's just, one more way to get those hip flexors strengthened a little bit. So next question is, I think Sarah's going to be the best one to answer this because I've never run a 100-miler. And I don't think Drew's ever run a 100-miler. So the question is, are you ever truly ready for your first 100-miler? And how do you train for mountain ultras while living in the Midwest? Sarah, you are on. This is all you.
Are you ever ready? I think so. I mean, I don't know that you're ever ready, or you don't necessarily need to feel ready the day that you sign up for it, right? Like that's the idea. Like I'm signing up for it today, but I'm not ready today. But I believe in the training process that I'll be ready on the day that the race is here. So I think that depends. If you say, am I ever ready to register? Maybe not. Like maybe anybody who there's a quote, if it really excites you and absolutely terrifies you, then you should definitely do it. Right. And so, yeah, there should be a little bit of fear in the signing up process that you think you're not sure you can do it. But I think with Microcosm, when you get ready to toe the starting line, you should be feeling pretty confident that you can reach that goal because you have put in the work and you've been led by a really great coach. And once you have put in all of that work, you are ready. So yeah, I think you can feel ready, but I don't think most people feel ready the day that they register for their first one.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I haven't quite wrapped my head around that distance for myself yet. It'll happen, but I think it's still not quite there yet. So the next question is how to train for mountain ultras if you're living in the Midwest. I think this is a really great question because we do have a lot of athletes who live in the Midwest and a lot of people are very interested in mountain running. And I mean, I would say focus on running economy, focus on your hill strides, get elevation where you can heat train, find trails that are as close to the terrain that you'll be racing on. And don't get discouraged because you live where you live for whatever reason it is. If it's a job, it's your family, whatever. And you embrace that. There are things about living in the Midwest that you can't get living in the high mountains of Colorado or on the coast of Oregon or whatever, so just take advantage of what you have and use what you have and just do what you can with it.
The cold and the heat of the Midwest are amazing training tools. You guys can endure things in the winter that even though Colorado sort of is known for winter weather, it's not like the Midwest. And so some of the best endurance athletes have come out of really burly winters and use that as train, a lot of running 100 miles and a lot of mountain endurance things are mental just as much as they're physical. So use that time to focus on that, to develop those mental skills, that mental toughness, the fortitude, the stamina, all that stuff.
I love that you brought that up. And I live in the Midwest. So it's I grew up here. So I'm I've always thought that this would be the worst place to live to train, but I found that it's actually one of the best places to live because as long as you're consistent, you can do anything as long as you're consistent, in so many ways. But I think that working on running economy, form, and your mental toughness training that's going to get you through some of the hardest endeavors that you physically put yourself through. And if someone's living in Southern California and has access to beautiful, perfect weather and amazing trails all the time, they might not know how to react to snow higher up in the mountains. They might not know how to react to a downpour of rain or like sweltering humidity. So I think just kind of really leaning in to that discomfort will make you a better person, better runner overall. Just being able to adapt. What do you think, Drew? I know that down south it gets pretty humid, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of something to say that you girls haven't like covered perfectly, to be honest. But I do always joke that humidity is like poor man's altitude. Like, so really you got it covered there. Like mentally, I think that when you're telling yourself like, man, I live here where there's not a ton of elevation. I just have a hard time thinking that I can go out and do like the Silver Rush 50, like whatever it is in Colorado. That's the beginning of a little bit of negative self-talk that we always try to get you to avoid. And so being confident in your training, like Sarah mentioned, being mentally ready is almost more important than being physically ready. And yeah, just being consistent, being confident, and just do the dang thing.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's just like so much fun and joy in the unknown as well. So if you're thinking about signing up for a mountain ultra and you're Midwest, based, do it. You might hate it, but like you also might love it, which is more exciting than anything. And like really leaning in and trusting your training and just going for it is just one of the most empowering feelings ever. So I would highly recommend going for it.
I don't think it's reasonable to think that like, because you live where you live, that you're like on a leash, that you can't escape and go places and experience wildly fun adventures. Honestly, that's, you got to get out of that. Like go travel, go to a race that you wouldn't experience anywhere close to where you live. I went to Leadville with Kristen and TJ and Zoe. And that one experience for me was like so incredible. And I would have never gone out to Leadville, Colorado, just because I never thought that I'd be able to run there, that it's like too mountainous or whatever. But you get out there and it's beautiful. You don't feel half as bad as you think you're going to feel. It's so amazing. So you gotta travel, you got to get out, you got to go do stuff that is challenging and the unknown, like Kristen is talking about. Such a good point.
Yeah, I feel like the human body is amazing, and the way it adapts and adjusts to circumstances that you find yourself in is actually really cool. So, to Drew's point, where it's like you go out there and you feel so much better than you thought you would. That's mental training. That's confidence, that's going to give you more incentive to go do other fun, big, scary things that you thought you'd never be able to do, because you keep proving to yourself that you are capable and you can keep finding those limits, which is awesome. So let's see, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes. One question that I've gotten quite a few times from athletes kind of comes from around the idea of what are the best running shoes for neutral arches, overpronators, underpronators. And we have the most amazing running store manager here to answer all of your running shoe questions.
No, like for real, like it's what I do for a living. I just coach because it's fun, but like I manage a couple running stores in Northwest Arkansas, and it's like literally shoe talk is all I do. It's so fun. So it's so difficult when someone just says like, what's the best shoe for me? It's like, well, I don't know you. I'm not there. I can't see your feet. I can't see your gait. I can't do an analysis. Like there's no clue. And so oftentimes when you get online and you read reviews or you're reading about other people's experiences, those are difficult to digest because those people aren't you. And so for a lot of microcosm athletes, there are stores close by within a drive's distance that can take a look at you closely and recommend models based on your arch or based on your gait, the amount of pronation, supination, whatever's going on. But for those of you that don't have a store close by, it can be challenging. So if you're looking for road shoes, most people tend to pronate a little tiny bit. Like you could probably get away with wearing neutral options, shoes that are void of any like posting or stability component built into them. But if you're just taking shots in the dark, oftentimes I tell people to invest in a shoe with just a little tiny bit of support, what we call mild stability at my shops. If you're neutral, a mild stability shoe will never hurt you, never cause an ache, a pain. It might weigh like 0.2 of an ounce more otherwise, but really doesn't matter a whole lot. I'm not saying go buy like some Brooks Aerial motion control shoe, but just like a little bit doesn't hurt literally anybody. You're totally fine. I have a lot of my athletes ask me about trail shoes. A lot of microcosm athletes are trail runners. And to be honest with you, there's only so many ways to make a shoe, if that makes sense. So when you start looking at shoes, some of the things that you need to look at are based on your terrain. What is the grip like? Based on your terrain, are there any like TPU or thermopolyurethane like rock plates built into the midsole, maybe for extra protection if you're running on really rocky, sharp rocky surfaces like I've got here in Northwest Arkansas? You start to look at heel toe differentials. I know that a lot of people like, man, I just heard the ultra is like killing the trail game and I got to go run an ultras, and they aren't necessarily aware that going down to a 0 drop shoe for a lot of people can bring on lower leg issues, strains, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, whatever the issue is. And so it's really difficult to answer what shoe is best for me because we're all so different. But man, like I would love to be able to like talk to everyone on an individual basis about what they need, but there's just like hundreds of microcosm athletes. And so it's difficult, but for real, like if any of y'all have questions about shoes, specific questions about shoes, I know I'm not going to get like 100 or 200 or 300 emails or whatever, but please, like you can reach out to me through the microcosm email and I'll do my best to help you out as best as I can. But yeah, I don't know, all of us run, all of us wear shoes, hopefully. What do y'all think when you go buy shoes? Like what are you looking for in a shoe?
I feel so lucky. I have a pretty normal foot. So pretty neutral arch, pretty normal foot, so I usually buy either the same model of shoe over and over again if I really like it. Like I really loved the Salomon Sense Pro Max and it is now discontinued, but if I find it anywhere online, I'll buy like 3 pairs. Cause those shoes just felt really great and worked for me. And right now I'm running in the Hoka Rincon and I love that shoe. So I think, I don't know, I feel like I'm not the greatest person to answer this question because I am like as basic as a pumpkin spice latte when it comes to my running shoes. Sarah, how are you doing?
So like a lot of women who have gone through pregnancy, my feet changed a lot after each of my kids. And so like I have a lot of a history of injuries that I think have been related to footwear. So I am like you, Kristen, where now that I have a pair of shoes, the Hoka Speed Goat 4 in a size wide, that I have been now using for like 2.5 years. I actually have like anxiety about what I'm going to do if they change the way they make their shoe because it works and I haven't, gotten hurt. But it was like, yeah, I've just had to really, I think like so many things with running, it is all about like paying attention. And like when you get new shoes, really paying attention for a few days and seeing like how you feel in them because like shoes might not make a huge deal, but they can, like if you drop to a 0 drop and don't know what you're doing, and so really tuning in and like see how your body's responding to the shoes if you change. And then Drew, you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, but I've also heard it's not good to like go up too many millimeters or down too many at one time. So like if you're at a certain drop, you want to just go, if you're trying to change, you want to do that gradually so you're not having to adjust too quickly.
That's absolutely correct. Most running shoes on the market are going to be somewhere between 5 and, well, when you talk about road shoes too, maybe 5 to 10 millimeters of drop. So that's where most shoes are going to end up. So if you're running in like an Adidas Ultra Boost, that's 12 millimeters of drop, and then you go down and you're like, well, I'm going to run in like a Hoka Clifton now, that's 5 millimeters. That's a really big drop, and would highly recommend not doing that all at once. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Every single millimeter that you drop your heel down, it has an impact on your lower leg, your plantar fascia, your Achilles, your soleus, the heads of your gastroc. Everything on the back of your leg is doing a little bit more work than it was before, as you engage in your propulsion phase. And so really trying to avoid big swings and drop is important. I like to tell people all the time, the color of your shoe doesn't matter. And I know, like, if my wife hears me, she's going to yell at me. It doesn't matter. Like, you've got to get what's comfortable. So part of the question was like, what should I be looking for in a new pair? Your shoes need to be comfortable. You don't need to like look at your shoe across the room and be like, I don't want to wear that because it doesn't feel good. It just makes it harder to go out and achieve your goal, which is to run. So comfort over looks. Once you find a pair, it's usually a good idea. You're hearing from the girls. It's usually a good idea to stick with it. If you're not one that has like a running store right down the road where you can just go try on 5, 6, 7 different models every time you need a new shoe, making sure that your shoes don't accumulate too many miles. Typically the rule of thumb, depending on the shoe, I mean, this range varies, but anywhere from 350 to 450 miles. A lot of factors on your weight and the surface and the shoe and all kinds of stuff, but generally speaking, that's what you're looking for. And then I know y'all have heard it, y'all are experiencing it in your own lives in different ways, but I don't know if you've heard of this like global pandemic that's going on right now, but it's having a major impact on production, distribution, and whatnot. And so what I'm being told as a running store person, brands like Hoka, Brooks, Adidas, Nike, Saucony is another one. They are not going to be shipping shoes to accounts for the entire month of November, December. They're talking about getting their next shipments in like January, February of 2022, which includes like a lot of new models that were supposed to come out Q4 of this year. They're all being pushed to Q1 of next year. And so right now you should be able to find pretty much whatever you want, but it will get harder over the next couple months. And so don't get caught in December not finding the shoe you want. Like if you've got the resources available, highly recommend going and buying an extra pair and just keeping it in the closet until you're ready to break it out.
That's such good advice, especially like with that insider knowledge. Every industry is struggling with all of that and just having the availability there. So yeah, if you can swing it, I would definitely recommend getting multiple pairs. So, but I do think it's important too, I know on Strava, you can keep track of the amount of mileage on your shoes. So if you're on Strava, use that tool. It's very beneficial. And because it is so different for everyone, if you're at 327 miles and your shoes start to feel like slippers and you can feel the ground, in every step, might be time to get a new pair of shoes. Doesn't need to be 500 miles. So just, your feet, your body, but also talk to Drew, like you have access to him. So definitely ask him questions. So that was good, Drew. I'm so glad that question came up because I've had a couple of athletes ask me that. And I'm like, man, I could do a Google search and like some research on my own, but I really don't. I'm glad that we have your expertise. Google. This is excellent.
Google's bad. That's like when you have this weird spot on your arm, you're like, I should probably Google it. Don't Google it. It's always wrong. Don't do it. Talk to someone that knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, that was a great hour, guys. That always goes by so fast. So yeah, if anyone has any other questions, shoot them in your training logs or through the emails. We'd love to answer them. Drew and Sarah will be leading this call next week, and I'm excited. I hope you guys have a good rest of the week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.